Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. Hope everybody is having a good day. Hope you have had a promising week. I know it can be really crazy. Um, um, I want to really talk to you in depth about a couple of things today. And I'll tell you the reason why in a minute. Before I do, I want to remind everybody that we're in the middle of a fundraiser, uh, specifically for Black Men Lead. But I'm going to put a general link in after the video is over for those who want to give to any of the other programs that are out there that we work on. But we definitely need your support. I'm going to explain why as we move through this video. And I'm hopefully at the same time going to encourage you and inspire you to be a part of change in your community, whether it's directly related to what I do or something else. But we definitely need to have a conversation. And the reason I'm having this conversation is someone commented on yesterday on a video that I did that good luck with Black Men Lead, rite of passage. But not everybody knows who you are. Not everybody's familiar with you. And so we don't know who, this is, for some of us, this is our first time. We just came across your video and we have to see it. And the person made a very valid point. It can be easy for me to have interaction with you guys for as long as I have and to sort of start to move around like everybody who sees the video knows who I am and what I've done over the last 30 years and what we've done through the Odyssey Project in so many different levels on so many different fronts, from research to program development to boots on the ground, feeding homeless to mental health resources and definitely our rite of passage initiative, which is so important for young Black males that I've explained so deeply. He had I'm assuming it was a he. It may have been a she, and I don't want to make that assumption. So again, instead of making assumptions, we're going to say that person had a very valid point. So what I want to do is I want to sort of talk about what Black empowerment looks like, what role we at the Odyssey Project have played over the years, why it's a good idea to support the work we do. And this is not going to be, you know me, I'm not the sensationalist. I'm not the person that's going to put the titles up that draw you in and talk about a bunch of nonsense because it's exciting. I'm not the gossip guy. I'm not here to talk about what person is doing what person in the celebrity world. When I talk about celebrities, there's a lesson to be taught about how we move as a people and how we respond to things in media predominantly. But that's it. But so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about some of the things that goes on. First of all, the first thing I did to remedy a part of what that complaint or that observation was from that person is I added a link to the organization's official website. On this site that I just happen to be on right now, you're going to find almost 700 articles on Black empowerment written by yours truly, researched using scientific method, cited bibliographies and references, and a rounded and non-biased approach. But I'm going to tell you how this comes about. In 1985, I was in the 11th grade, and I came home and the Phil Donahue show was on. I don't know if I had left school early or if it was the 3 o'clock, because one time it was on in the morning, the other time it was on like around 3. It was the show that was the show before Oprah took the waves. And I happened to turn on Phil Donahue, and there was a Black lady sitting there with an afro, and she was surrounded by white men, and they were talking about her thesis, the theory of color confrontation. The Crest theory of color confrontation was what it was named, and her name was Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, a psychiatrist and a scholar and an unbelievable force in Black thought. At that moment, I had been wrestling with whether or not I was going to become a lawyer or a psychologist. Well, my mind was made up after I watched this Black woman sitting on the heels of, in 1985, the heels of a major push in the academic and intellectual world of the notion of Black intellectual inferiority in the late 70s, the early 80s, using IQ results as the means and the method of coming to that conclusion, since which I have blown out of the water. One of the articles you'll find on this page that was basically at one point a thesis or a paper that shows how IQ tests are actually culturally biased and how it would actually serve Europeans over Africans simply on syntax and linguistics alone, but in other areas, and how Blacks, despite not being 15 points lower on average on these IQ tests, were actually outperforming on other practical life experiences and so forth. So, but anyway, it started with Dr. Cress Wilson, and it started my plight, and it started what I would ultimately do over time. I have, through the Odyssey Project, conducted multiple research projects, including one that ended up being produced in this book, which I believe was my 22nd book, The Undoing of the African American Mind, which is an introduction into a theory that I call collective bias reality syndrome, where we have, through our experiences, developed a collective bias in how we approach and we believe things can happen for us in situations. And that was just one research paper. Another research paper ties into what the person on yesterday was talking about with Black Men Lead, and that was African American adolescent and young adult male violence. I did a lot of literature review on existing topics. I also did a number of different experiential observations. I also did quite a bit of my own studies. In what I found was there was a gentleman by the name of Howard Stevenson in the University of Pennsylvania, who was connected to somebody I admired, Dr. Joy DeGruy, on the other side of the country, on the other coast, at the University of Portland. And they had worked on understanding African-American adolescent violence. Well, I wanted to look at African-American adolescent and young adult male violence, but I wanted to look at the work they've done. And I was able to glean from that, and from that build out. And I developed what we now call the Black Man Lead Rite of Passage Initiative, which is a way of properly socializing young Black males. If you look into other enclaves that have a high level of performance and success, they have rites of passage, starting with the highest performance. And yes, I know there's a lot of other things that go on that give them the position they have, but Jews have a rite of passage, Arabs have a rite of passage, Latinos have a rite of passage. Anybody that wants to have a clear understanding of what they expect from their men have a rite of passage. Females too, but we're talking about manhood, because understanding manhood sets the parameters for what you can expect in your community, because without the protection and provision of men, things simply don't happen. So I decided that we can literally impact not just African-American adolescent and young adult male violence through socialization. We can reduce the dropout rate, reduce the incarceration rate, by which also reducing recidivism rate. Also, we can increase the number of Black men who create mechanisms by way of business ownership that lend to the building of generational wealth. There were so many different things that came out of that study, and I put it out there. Another book, my 19th book, that has played a major role is Born in Captivity, an understanding of the dynamic of right now 150 plus years of post-slavery experiences that have created what we also refer to in the other book, collective cognitive bias reality syndrome. It's, in other words, our experiences. And that's why, as a person who functioned in the realm of human behavior, healing, psychology, whatever you want to call it, because at the end of the day, what you have to understand is it's always existed. What you call it is dependent upon who you talk to. What I'm worried about is the effectiveness of it. So I don't give it one name. I give it whatever a person needs it to be for it to help them. Some people don't want to talk to a psychologist, but they'll talk to a consultant. They'll talk to a life coach. And the bottom line is I want to get to the things that are affecting you. But what you have to understand is when you look at this, So much of psychology is about experiences. What have you experienced? Well, the European experience, especially in this country, but worldwide, globally, historically, is different than the African experience. And so then we say we use the same mechanisms, the same approach, the same balances? No, we cannot, because the African experience is completely different. The Afrocentric idea of what is has to be at the center of anything dealing with our psyche, anything dealing with our spirit, anything dealing with our emotions, anything dealing with who we are, what we want to be, what we are, what we claim to be, what we desire to be. It is immensely. Are you talking about, hold on, John ETA? Are you talking about I don't have any. Oh, I think you're talking about, and I have to look at it. I want to answer your question. I'm glad I turned over and saw this. You're talking about, matter of fact, I have it right here. You're talking about the quest for African American wealth, which is book number 25. It is definitely on deck. What happened is a lot of things happened, and I slowed down the writing process on it. I've actually done some more research. It slowed down, but the book is coming. Everybody who paid will have, if I'm not mistaken, this is what it is. It's the only thing I can think about that you're talking about. If it's something else, please type it in and tell me which one you're talking about so I know. But the book that's on deck, the one that I did, I accepted people paying for the right to put their memorials or celebrate somebody from their family into the book, which I have all of that information here. Matter of fact, let me pull it up. So, we'll know. I want to address that. So I'm glad you're coming on. Let me see how quickly I can find it. I keep it all. Crushing Black Man Lead. Rapid change. 10 tips for leading. Podcast. Okay. Building generational wealth. That's not it. Hold on. I just saw it because I was looking for something else the other day. Here it is. I went right over it. So if your name isn't on here, please contact me. I have Philip Adenican, Varies Weeks, Robin Redmond, Patty Amma, Camilla Haston, Don Pelly, Rashida Anderson, Leroy F. Motley, Senior, Randy L. Johnson, Ms. Lovelace, Kendra Newman, Shante Faison, Shakan Jenkins, Michael Burton, Shanette Drayton. Those are the ones, and I have what you wanted me to put in the book. If it's someone that did sign up to have their loved one or themselves acknowledged in the book and then put in, and obviously you get a copy of the book when it comes out. But this is the sponsor list I have so far, the people who signed up to have their names in there, and that project will be completed before the end of the summer, and the book will be released before the end of the summer. I do apologize for the delay, but John, if you can give me your information, or you can email me at ceo@theodysseyproject21.top with your information, and I can look it up and see if it's something else that you paid for that I'm unaware of that you should already have or something. Things do slip through the cracks, and I want you to be taken care of. You can send me that information so it's not on mainstream, or if you just know what it is and you want to put it in, you can. But thanks for asking. But I just want to touch that. I know we're a little off, and that probably kind of threw everybody off, but this is it. We got to get everything straight. Everything isn't perfect, and when you're running everything with as much demand as it is with as few resources, sometimes things get aloof, and it's me doing it. So when it comes to a project like a book, I actually have to have enough time to really do that, because I'm not going to half do it. And so literally I was into it, I was on it, and then all this other stuff hit. And when I tell you it hit, it hit. But I'm back strong. So that project is definitely going to be completed before the end of the summer. It's going to be released, and you guys will see your loved one's name in it the way you requested it. You can still actually do it if you want to. When I stopped writing, I stopped asking, because I've already, have the people who've given on, and I want to make sure when I start writing again, which I just started back on that at the beginning of May. So that's that again, but that's just it. There's so many things going on, and at the center of it is this guy named Rick Wallace. Call him Doc. Put the credentials at the back if you want. Most people call me Rick. I'm not real big-headed or anal about how people refer to me. I am about getting work done. But back to Dr. DeGrew, Dr. Howard Stevenson, and the work they did. Dr. DeGrew actually in around 2000 created the first African-American adolescent respect scale. The respect scale is a tool you can use when you're dealing with a child or youth, and you sit up and you make the observations based off of what's on the scale, and you can look at the different influences that impact African-American violence, and you can tell what the risk level is for any individual kid to at some point commit violence. Now, what are the 5 primary influences? 3 of them are going to be in every inner city. Number 1, urban hassle. What is urban hassle? Urban hassle is the things that kids in the inner city deal with. Navigating through gang violence, navigating through drug use and drug activity. Ambulances and gunshots all time of the night. If you live on the East or in the Midwest, L trains and noise moving at all times of the night. Poverty, just those things that are naturally, that we'll call those urban hassles, being inside of the city, just, congestion, just not enough space, not enough. All of these are urban hassles, and they contribute to, at a certain degree, the proclivity or the risk for violence. That's urban hassle. The second one is being a witness. Well, that's the 5th one. The 4th one is being a witness to violence. So the more you witness violence, the more desensitized you become to it. The more desensitized you become to it, the easier it is to carry out in a time of frustration, because your conscience is no longer seared by the idea, act of harming someone. It happens. The 3rd influence is being a victim of violence. Anyone who has been a victim of violence has an increased risk of at some point committing violence. Okay, the 2nd and the most flexible and influential to me is socialization. We learned that for youth who are properly socialized into their race function, social functions, are less likely to be violent. That's not all. They're more likely to excel in academics, more likely to excel in holistic education, more likely to become business owners, less likely to become incarcerated, less likely to deal with anything that has to deal with the negative side of social reality. Socialization is huge. It is the identity and the purpose combined, and it gives them a sense of place in the social makeup. And the number 1 influencer for violence among African-American adolescents and young adults is the feeling of being disrespected. The prisons are full of people who said he dissed me, disrespected, kicked me, was on my block when he didn't belong on my block, looked at me crazy. The things that our young boys are defining as disrespect is amazing, but you have to be aware of it. I have dealt and done all of that. I know what it is. Here's something that was very powerful that Dr. Howard Stevenson actually uncovered in his research about it, is that when there is a male present, an adult male that has the respect of the youth in that community, that when there is a potential flare up and when there's a flare up and a potential for violence, if that man can simply lay his hand on the young man that's upset, he doesn't necessarily reduce the anger, but he reduces the chance that he will act violently, simply out of that same word, respect. That's the power of having Black men in the Black community. And that's one of the things that we talk about. That's one of the things that's immensely important. That's one of the things that we really, truly have to look at when we talk about Black Men Lead. It is a socialization tool. And the reason that it's important to me is that I think it has to be a universal rite of passage. What do I mean by that? That in every city, there has to be a universal standard of Black manhood. There's too many ways men are being defined in our culture that leave huge gaps in responsibility and demand and expectation. And so people are finding their strengths and using their strengths to define what manhood is to them. No, manhood is a person who protects, a person who provides, a person who is literally the uplifter of those he covers. In other words, he doesn't use his family as a mean to lift himself. He uses himself to lift his family. It doesn't mean that he's sitting around on the bottom. He is connected with other men, and together we hold ourselves up while we make sure we send kids out of our house that will excel and exceed and do what beyond what we've done. We're not so starved for power that we have to be the baddest person in the room every day, the smartest person in the room every day, the most brilliant person in the room, the richest person. Oh, that bag is so important right now because that's primarily how Black men are being defined. We have a lot of people who are out there getting the bag, but they're emotionally immature. They have a major responsibility deficit. They have no sense of boundaries and respect. They believe it's because they have the bag that a woman has to bow down. And they have the upper hand. They don't see the value in the woman because the only thing that they see that matters is the bag. And so when a woman shows up and she has the bag, they're not even interested. Why? Because I don't have an advantage. I don't have leverage, because it's about the commodification of manhood. It's what I have in my bank account that makes me a man. No, you need some loot. You need paper. You need to have the ability to support and provide, but that's not what makes you a man. It's what you do with it that makes you a man. It's how you protect that makes you a man. It's how you engage that makes you a man. I look at the continence of women when they're talking about their man to gauge the character of the man. How does he speak about you when you're not around? How do you speak about him when he's not around? Now, granted, sometimes that could be a character flaw in the woman. You could have a good man and you could be talking down on him because it's simply who you are. But I'm thinking is, you get an idea of how a man moves because he's going to move the same way. When he's really truly knows who he is, he moves the same way no matter where he's at, what he's doing, no matter how he's feeling. Something I shared with you guys a long time ago. I have never treated my wife based on how I feel. And that's true right now today. Never treated her based on how I feel. I treated her based on my covenant and my commitment. Now, how people are perceiving and saying is none of my business, but I've never talked down to her. I have never disrespected her, to her or to anyone else. I have never carried her in any way but a positive way in my spirit. And I can live good in that. And that's part of being a man. It's not just what's in the bank account. It's not just what my earning potential is. It's not just what my name or being associated with me is. It's about, what am I doing in this world? How does my community and my home benefit from me? And you have to know that your home needs more than your money. And that's a part of this thing that we're doing. That's a part of this thing that we're doing. And that's just it. I mean, and then there is another book there are two books I did on education, which is again a big part of what we talk about in the Odyssey Project. The first book was through Etlock Publishing, and it is The Miseducation of Black Youth in America. This was my 16th book, and it deals with how the system is set up to misdirect, misguide, mislead, misprepare our youth, and how we put so much trust in this system that does not serve our interests. And the second has been academic apartheid, and it focuses heavily on what is happening to our young boys in the system, but to Blacks in particular, but it talks about how everything from the use of psychotropic drugs on 5-year-olds uh, to control oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD. We're talking about Schedule II drugs. Schedule II drugs like Ritalin, Vyvanse, Concerta, um, Adderall. Um, Schedule II drugs. We're talking about Ritalin is literally one molecule off of being cocaine. And in case you didn't know, kids who are diagnosed with ADHD are given stimulants because it has been shown in studies that stimulants actually have an opposite effect on people who are hyperactive in their thought processes. The mind is moving, and a stimulant actually in some way slows it down. But the problem is you're taking a psychotropic drug and giving it to a 5-year-old to control behavior without an understanding that actually in a normal environment, a child learns better when moving. The idea that a child needs to sit in the space for hours at a time in order to learn is a Eurocentric concept that has not fared well. We're talking about a school system pattern or model that's used in the US that isn't even the best among Eurocentric. It's not even in the top 10. And yet it's consistently used. It has been proven. Whether, matter of fact, one of the first person that had the most success with it wasn't a black teacher. It was a white teacher, Ryan Clark, on the East Coast, who's now running his own Montessori school or something like that. And these kids are off the chain because they are allowed to express their energy. They are allowed to move. They are actually encouraged to move, encouraged to dance, encouraged to take up music. One of the things we created at the Odyssey Project is the Music is Life program. The goal of Music is Life is to make sure that every Black kid at least knows how to play at least one instrument. Why? Because there's a level of confidence that comes with it, a level of expression that comes with it, a level of creativity that is opened up, and so much more. It's powerful, but we don't see it. We are constantly hurting our kids through a system that just wants to teach them how to fit in and plug into somebody else's vision. And it doesn't serve them in the long while, on the long road. And so we get into all these different things. And these are just some of the things. If you go on the site, you'll see the hours and hours and hours and hours, thousands upon thousands of hours of research invested in understanding the Black plight. Like even the book we just talked about, this next book coming out about the quest for Black wealth and everything. And the way this book is written, it's written in several chapters. Right now it's 20 as it is outlined. The first half is about everything we faced, from Reconstruction, Black codes, convict leasing, redlining, gentrification, benign neglect, everything that works against us, the atrocities that happened. We just celebrated the 101st on Tuesday. We just celebrated the 101st memorial of the Tulsa race massacre, where they burned down Black Wallstreet. That wasn't the only time that happened in a Black enclave that was thriving economically. It happened in Rosewood, Florida. It happened in Wilmington, North Carolina. It happened in Slocum, Texas. It happened in East St. Louis. It happened in certain parts of Chicago. And I can go on. We knew how to get the bag. We knew how to support one another in getting the bag. We had it going, but we lacked a couple of things. And one of them was the understanding of military science. How do you insulate what you've built? How do you protect it from outside interferences? We didn't understand that, and it cost us. And I've done the research on that. I've done papers on that. I did a position paper on the disproportionality of special education referrals of young Black males. How in the traditional public school system, Black males are referred for special education at an alarmingly high rate because we're dealing in a white culture in which the predominant teacher makeup and population are white middle-aged women who don't understand the culture from which these young boys come from and are literally afraid of them at as early as 5 years old because they don't understand them. So the easy move is to find a way to get them out of the classroom, which in turn alienates them. And so by the time they're in the 5th and 6th grade, they are alienated, they're distant, they're aloof, they don't feel like they have a place, they're frustrated. And what happens? they're looking for the first chance to exit. And so they drop out. What does that do? That increases their risk of becoming incarcerated. Why? Because when you drop out of school, you cut off the one mechanism you do have of increasing your earning potential, your avenues towards that. Now, if someone were to say, okay, if you want to drop out, you need to come over here and you need to go to a school that can teach you a trade. You need to go to a school that can teach you a trade. You need to go learn something that you can get, because if you become a plumber, you can literally sit up and eventually start your own plumbing business and make good six-figure income as a plumber, as an electrician. And that is something that we don't do. Now, here's the thing. It used to be auto mechanics, another one that can make six figures, auto mechanics. Used to be auto mechanics. It used to be wood shop, construction. You can start your own construction company. You can become a contractor and build. You don't need anybody to give you a job. You can go create. You can contract out your specialty to another contract. You can subcontract. There's so many different ways that you could be moving and operating and doing something for yourself without having to ask someone and then settle for a low-income job because you were forced out of an environment that wasn't serving you and you didn't feel you belong. And now you're out there trying to hustle and find a way to do it, and you get frustrated and confused. Somebody says, hey, man, let's do this. You do this. You end up in the system. Then the system has a whole nother way of institutionalizing you and inculcating you to ensure that you come back. And I'll get into that another time. So there's all these things that we have to look at. And then if you go on the site, if anybody who visits the site, two things I would definitely tell you to check out. Check out the research tab, because you're going to see the paper I talked about with special education disproportionality. You're also going to see collective dominant cognitive bias syndrome, which is another theory that I came up on outside of this one. Close, but a little different because of the dominative effect. Then you can come to resources. You're going to see everything from group economics, domestic violence hotline, video library, books and literature. You come over, you're going to see programs and services. This is what I'm proud of. We have the blueprint for Black empowerment. I actually got a chance to work with Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Joanne Anderson. I call her doctor. I don't know if she's actually a doctor, but I call her that. I got to work with them and get their cosign on the blueprint. I'm looking for other people to put the minds together to help me take this to the next level. You'll see the Black Code of Conduct, and you'll see Black Community Empowerment Initiative, Music is Life, thing on reduced recidivism. I mean, we've really put in the work. We put in the research. We've connected. This isn't just some small thing. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been doing this since the day, little before I left high school, since the day I saw Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. And from Dr., I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave and get off. I don't want to keep you too much because I know this isn't that exciting stuff that everybody likes to talk about, but this is where the work is done. This is what's going to matter. We're going to need men who are willing to plant seeds that they may not live long enough to see come to fruition. We're going to need men who are willing to save babies that will not do what they need to do while they're alive. In other words, there are people I'm planting into. By the time what I've planted comes to fruition, I may not be here, but my work will live. And that's the thing that you got to have, because everybody right now wants to win. They want people to know what they did. So they're looking for band-aids and quick fixes and panaceas. And that's not how we're going to change. You don't take 246 years of chattel slavery. You don't take 12 years of Reconstruction, 10 years of Black codes, another 12 years of convict leasing, another 76 years of Jim Crow segregation, and then everything that has followed since, and say, man, we're going to come up with this. You just do this and everything's going to be great. We haven't even talked about trauma. That's what I focus on. That's what I deal with. That's one of my areas of expertise, and what I do is helping people heal from trauma, but nobody wants to talk. Nobody's been able to tell me where, at what point. Every time I have somebody say, well, slavery's been over for 150 years or 100, however long it was at the time that they said it. And so it's time to get over it. I'm gonna say, okay, at what point did Black people receive access to treatment that will allow them to deal with the trauma that came? And then there's a whole bunch of research that I've done on the generational transmission of trauma. Epigenetics. I studied it so much that I moved off into a realm where I've been asked and invited to speak on epigenetics and cancer, which I was just trying to talk about epigenetics and how it impacts the transmission of trauma. But that's just it. You have to put in the work. The work is boring to most people. But without the work, we're just talking, we're just emotional, we're just moving around and we're reacting to things. We're reacting to things. But anyway, when I discovered Dr. Wessling, and then I'm done. Right after that, I came across Neely Fuller Jr. Why? Because he was her mentor. And I had to study him. And you got to think, when I'm doing this, there's no internet. I'm at library. I'm writing and requesting documents and information from schools, and I'm looking on registries. I'm having to find it the best way you can. So I'm downtown at the main library a lot, and I'm at university libraries a lot, and I'm gaining this information. But from there, I found Dr. Amos Wilson. From there, I found Dr. Naeem Akbar. From there, I found Dr. Claude Anderson, and I've been a huge fan since, and I discovered a number of others, but Dr. Asa Hilliard and so many others, James Small. I mean, they're out there. These people are putting in the work, and they're not appreciated enough. We lost Dr. Ben. Somebody had to pay for his funeral because he died poor. We lost we lost Amos Wilson early, suspiciously. We lost Dr. Khalid Muhammad early, suspiciously. And there have been so many more that have been vital to how I moved and what I dived into. And I'm hoping to leave this to somebody else who will champion it after I'm gone. But we are going to have to invest in one another. And for the person who brought it to my attention that there will be people who will watch my videos when I'm sitting up and I'm saying we're doing a fundraiser who will not know I am. Unfortunately, I can't spend the amount of time it takes because I'm 40 minutes in and I haven't touched the surface of what we do at the Odyssey Project. Mental health, counseling. We have rescued young girls from sex trafficking. My wife, Marion, has and still does work with young women that's dealing with trauma. She's a survivor from childhood. All of these things are things that are being done. I work with little boys. I work with boys. I have boys that mothers have brought to me that need support and help. And this is in addition to what I do for a living in doing this. So, I mean, the work is there, but we have to be a consistent resource. We have to be able to address the problem. We have to realize that while the people who watch this video are, you look and say, man, well, he's got this, or he's got this many people watching, which is small compared to some of the people who are out there and they know how to do the sensational thing. I'm not on sensational. I'm not going to tap dance for you. I'm not going to throw up colors and stars and all of that. I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on. I'm going to tell you why it's going on based off of my level of expertise and my understanding and observation. I'm going to tell you what needs to change, how it needs to change. Every time I talk about a problem, I'm going to talk about a solution. We got to put in work. We've got to be consistent. We got to unite. We got to be willing to fund things. That's how Black Wallstreet got on. That's how Slocum got on. That's how Rosewood got on. That's how women, all of them got on because they understood the importance of investing in themselves and one another. And they did it in a way that was committed. It wasn't a one-off thing. It was, hey, we're going all in. I've given my life to this because I believe in it that much. Without a doubt. I was talking to someone earlier today who I'm setting up something for my company. And I was talking to them, I said, man, because they asked me, I have someone I can connect you with right now. And they wanted me to take a slot as senior editor at Fox. I'm sharing this with you just because I want you to understand something. And the question came up early. This person is working for me to look for different ways that I can plug in and grow the company because the company needs the resources to do what I do. And they say, well, would you be interested in working at Fox? I said, well, There's a whole lot of issues that I have with media, mainstream media anyway. I said I'm a part of Black media. And so I have some things I stand on. Say, so what would happen if you ran into a situation where you saw some content that you needed to edit or your team needed to edit because you would be the senior editor? If your team needed to edit and you didn't agree with it, I would stand on the fact that I disagreed with it and I would not participate in it. And I was asked also about being a paid board member where I would offer advice for organization on, what direction to take. And again, it's the same thing. I have turned down money based off of the principles on which I stand. I have lost one of my clients, and I don't mean a person, I mean a company that was paying me to do something on a monthly basis for years. I lost them because I would not tone down the way I approached fighting for my people. And it was public, and they were afraid that their clients would ultimately come across it and connect them. And so they withdrew, and I gave them my blessings. But see, when we do it for ourselves, we don't have that problem. And that's the thing that I keep pushing. We've got to start supporting one another. Well, anyway, look, it's time for me to get off of here. As you can tell, that's going off. That's probably somebody that I need to talk to or whatever. But with that being said, I'm gonna get off of here. Look, yes, we do need support. We need support in a way that I can't even tell you because people think things are free. And unfortunately, a lot of our people think things should be free. And so they expect you to go out there and make it happen. They never sit up and ask, what does it cost? They'll tell you, man, that's an awesome thing. They'll never ask, well, how much is it going to cost you? What is it going to take? How can I help? Those are the things that we have to ask. Those are the things I ask when I'm dealing with someone that's telling me, hey, this is where I'm at. This one, okay, it's good. That's what you want to do. Well, how much is it going to cost? What are you going to take? How do you plan on doing it? Do you have the resources, or what do you plan on doing? What can I do to help? And I give to myself the things because I understand when you plant, you're sowing, you're placing something, and it returns. And it doesn't always return in the way that you plan it, but it returns as a resource. When you become a resource to others, it returns as a resource. And so I understand that. That's why I consistently give, even in a time right now where so much is not like I want it in my personal life. But I'm still moving, I'm still going, I'm still showing up because that's what you do. That's what men do. That's what men do. You show up even when you don't feel like it, even when you know you're being misrepresented. You show up and you be who you've always been, and you let your word and the way, something my grandma said, I promise this is it. Something my grandmother said to me, and this is just coming from where I'm at. And anybody who has been around me long enough knows I've been very consistent in who I am. I didn't just show up here. I've been doing this all my life, and I've been doing it on social media for over 12 years. And something my grandmother told me when I came home from fourth grade, I was 9 years old, and they had started a rumor about me. You know how kids are. I'm trying not to be emotional. They started a rumor because it's connecting to where I'm at right now. They started a rumor about me, and I came home and I was like, tell me what to say, tell me what to do, so they'll stop because I didn't do this. And my grandmother said something that I've heard a million times since then. I don't know where she got it from, but it's definitely not new. If you're seeing it around, it's not new because my grandmother told me this 40 something years ago. She said, son, stop trying to convince people of who you are. She say, tell the truth and leave it. She say, the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Set it loose. It'll defend itself. Then she followed up with this, and I'm done. She says, stop trying to convince people of who you are and let the life you live speak for you. People are going to want to believe what they want to believe about you because there are some people who need you to be what they're saying you are for them to exist where they think they need to exist. Live the life that you're supposed to live and let the life you live speak for you. That's what I'm doing each and every day, and what I do in my business, and what I do in my community, and what I do for my family, and what I do for everyone I come in contact with. So when I ask you for your help, I'm living my life and I'm doing everything I can. And I appreciate it. If you want to show love for what we're doing and support it, the link is in the description box. If you want to give via Cash App, the organization's Cash App handle is in the description box. If you want to learn more about what we do, that link is right below that. You can go to the organization's page and you will find hundreds upon hundreds of resources that I created literally and put this work in myself. And to those who back me up and send out emails and do all the stuff that helps me get things done, I love you guys. You have been an unbelievable blessing to me, but we're not done yet. On that note, I'm out.